Zion, continuing off, we just learned about how, really, when you do Averis, you get superpowered Chayus. You get extra life force by doing Averis. Did you know that? Do Averis today. But it really doesn't work. Even though in the time of Golos, Hashem says, you're going down, I'll go down with you, and comes all the way into Klippa, so we can get Chayus from Klippa. And we can give more Chayus to Klippa when we're doing Averis. Nevertheless, it's not going to last. It won't last, is what he said in the last Maamar. Now we're going to understand why it won't last in this Maamar. And this is very, very important. So don't do Averis today. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Just like every Avera, it feels good in the moment. And then after that, you feel like garbage. Also, the spiritual effect. It's very nice for the moment, but it's not going to last. You ready? Perek Aleph. B'nei Akum, all the Goyim Hine call Kabbalah Shifam. Where do they receive Chayas from? Humacharayim. Is from a backward state. So any Goyim who don't do Shavim Mitzvah B'nei Noach, the bad nations like the terrorists or whatnot, Hashem's giving to them in a backward state. Hashem doesn't want them. But Yisrael receive their Chayus from the Pnimiyus, from the inner. So one's from the backwards way, one's from a forwards way. What does that mean? Backwards and forwards. We already explained, and we're going to explain later, that it's someone you want to give to and someone you're not interested in giving to, but you have to for some reason. However, let's say someone sinned and iniquitied. The Garam Cyril Karata, and then he caused that Hashem's Ratzon will leave Mimenu from him, and then he receives his Chayus. How do you receive Chayus? If you're saying, Hashem, I don't want you, I'm against your Torah, I'm against your mitzvahs, I'm not getting any Chayus from you. You receive Chayus, Kedugmas, just like Habalikayim, just like animals and all other living things. And you take the first portion with what you brought down to Sitrachas. So let's say you're a Yid, and you're connected to Hashem. Menachem, you ever been a Yid? Beautiful. And you're connected to Hashem. So now you go down, you're like, Hashem, I don't like you, I'm going into Klippa. And you go down into Klippa by doing all sorts of Averis. You dedicate the rest of your life to sitting in your basement and drinking Diet Coke while watching movies. Yeah? You're going down there, but you're a Yid, so you have so much Chayus, and you're drawing that Chayus into Klippa. So now the Klippa has more Chayus, and you're getting your Chayus from Klippa that you gave more Chayus, so therefore, guess who the VIP of Klippa to get the most? It's you. So now you're supercharged with Klippa power. Isn't that great? I don't think it's great, but you know what's the problem with this? This whole life force gets cut off. You know why? We're going to explain why it doesn't work. Until now, he just says, oh, sorry, it's not going to work. And you're like, I don't know, I'll try it. Let's find out what happens. You're like, plot twist. But now we're going to find out why it's going to get cut off. Yuvin there, this could be understood. According to what we explained earlier in Maamar Beis Perek Beis. Remember way back when? Maamar Beis Perek Beis? The Inyan Ponim V'Ocher, about face and back. Forward and backwards. Fast forward and rewind. So within Hashem's will, what Hashem wants. What does it mean? What does it mean the face, the forward, the front of what Hashem wants? Ponim means it's from the same word as Pnimius. It's Hashem's inner will. And what he really wants. What Hashem desires. Meaning aside of Kedusha. You know what Hashem wants? You know what Hashem created the world for? You know what Hashem's interested in? Is Kedusha, holy things. By the way, what is holiness? What is Kedusha? Just without getting into a long discussion, it says in Tanya, Kedusha is whatever is connected to Hashem. Because it says in Perek Rabbi Lozer, I think we learned already in Kuntres Umaayan, that Hashem is holy, and anything connected to Hashem is holy. So anything that comes from Hashem is holy. That's what Hashem wants. That's what Hashem's creating the world for. You're learning Torah here, and Hashem is creating the world just for you to sit and learn Torah. But Aval, the Sitra Achra is given in a backwards way. What's that? Hashem doesn't want Sitra Achra. Let's say a terrorist. Does Hashem want terrorists? No, he doesn't want terrorists. But Adrab, on the contrary, they are the abominations of Hashem that he hates. What a great word, abominations. Remember that one. And Hashem's giving them life force, not because he wants to. Like someone who's giving something backwards over his shoulder to someone he doesn't like. He's like, ugh, I have to give to you also? Fine, I'll give you backwards. You know, you're giving out Mashiach Manas to all your friends, and then there's a kid you really don't like, but your mommy told you you have to give to everyone, so you're like, I'll give it to you backwards.
Like, you have to give to everyone, but not leave them out because you give to everyone. So interesting. No.
Genius. Probably have years of experience in the Lubavitch Yeshiva, no? So, here's the thing. What does that mean that Hashem has to give them? Hashem can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to give them. So the Rebbe's going to explain here that it's part of a system. Hashem wants to have a world in which you have good going to the good people, and therefore you have other options. You have an option of bad. You have the leftovers. You have the Acharayim, means Hashem's giving, or Hashem's just letting it exist on the outside in a very superficial way. Or Bira, Indian, you Derek Marshall. We can understand it from the Marshall. Who loves Mashalim? This is one of the most fun parts of Chassidus where you get a good Marshall and you spend the rest of your life trying to figure out what the Nimshal is. When the king is making a big feast. Delicious. Which king? Mendel, give me a king. Achashverosh is making a big feast.
Tom Brain.
Okay. Who?
That's older.
That what? Umishtek kol sarov. And he's making what's another word for a feast? A banquet for all his royal officers, Va'avadav, and all his loyal servants. A mighty moment Rabbi spends tons of cash from his treasure houses. When I become a king, I'm definitely going to have treasure houses. Al hamshach hamishtazeh, on this great meal, this massive royal feast. Surely the king's intent and his inner will is not with all this expenditure, hagodol, this unbelievable amount of throwing away money. Surely it's not only for the great ministers, and the most important servants, that they should eat and drink and get drunk and have fun. We call from all the foods of the king's table, from all different types of royal delicacies. You got any better words for me?
Well,
what's a better word for royal delicacies?
That's the luxuries.
Luxuries. There we go. What do you say?
That's all I got.
Meat board? What? You know what else is at the king's meal? Think about the king's making a meal. It's not just going to be top ministers and lock the doors. You're going to have lower people there. You know why they're there? Like the low-level servants and maidservants, and the lower-ranking people who are behind the mill, which means they're like the bakers, the waiters, the janitors. You know, there's a lot of workforce that goes into making a big meal. You guys want to help out any shluchim and purim? It's a lot of work, no? Sheyuchlu min hashirayim. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to eat the leftovers. It's left over from the important officers. So, let's say the king is making a meal for 100 important guests. He's going to need another 100 waiters and bakers and butlers and wine mixologists. Oh, that's a good one. If I was a king, I'd definitely have a wine mixologist. But what do you think is going to happen when the leftover cheesecake comes back to the kitchen and the important officers only ate half a cake? You could bet that the butlers are going to have a nice tasting snack, no? Fantastic. Or let's say even more so about the leftovers. You know what's the real leftovers? If you're a good Viking king, if you're making one of these big banquets for all your important Viking warriors, like the bones, that you throw down below, the dogs and the like eat. So, is it that the dogs and the like eat, or that the dogs eat and the like? Meaning, is it that you throw bones on the table and dogs eat them? Meaning that's the leftovers that your dogs run under the table? And then there's other things that are leftovers? Or is it, gavna and the like, that the dogs and other things like dogs eat them? Like maybe you have a crocodile under there. I think it's the first one. I'm kidding around. So what do we have over here? We have something very interesting. That you have leftovers, that every banquet that the king makes, there's going to be all the important guests having a good time. And also all the servants will have a good time. All the dogs will have a good time. All the servants are going to be like, oh, the king's making a big feast today. We're going to have a great time. You know, the amount of leftovers is going to be. I'm sure the dogs are very excited also. Obviously, the dogs and servants aren't the same, but the point we're bringing out is about leftovers that lots of other people have done. It's impossible to say that the whole point of this giving out money, this massive amount of money being given out, shirayim, the whole point is for the leftovers, halal, these leftovers, the lowest servants eat, and the maid servants, who are busy turning the mill, and the dogs, and the like. So do you think that the king made a feast for the leftovers? That's ridiculous. Who makes a feast in order for the leftovers? The king wasn't planning on spending tons of money on them. You know what else he wasn't planning? He wasn't planning on spending a cent on his dogs. Okay? The dogs under the table that he gives his leftovers for, he wasn't planning on making, oh, you know what? Today's my birthday. I'm going to make a great dog feast. No, he was planning on inviting over his friends. If the dogs don't have leftovers, they can have leftovers. So there, rather when spending tons of cash, with a real inner will, for the sake of this big meal, of all the different officers, who are so important, then automatically, you know who else gets the benefit? Also the outer things, the superficial things. So what does he want on the inside? That his friends will have a great party. What's happening on the outside is also outside of that. There's tons of leftovers. Yeah, we better line up outside the king's super kitchen. Then, shiur, those are the leftovers. Shirayim. You ever heard of shirayim? By the playlist you're obeying, it's shirayim. I'll tell you a story about it if we have time. Even to the lowest level servants. This is called the life force energy that's coming in the outer way. Derech agav, like, just by the way. Derech agav is like, by the way. Bilvad, like someone who's throwing something backwards over his shoulder. So, what do we see from this? The king doesn't want to give these people. It's just it happens when he's giving to those he wants. So too Hashem is trying to give life force to all the good things in the world. And part of having a world is that there's other things who are going to get life from it. Kitzer, real quick, in short. Sitra Akra of Akum, the other side, and the bad goyim makabel shiva mecharaim. They get their whole life was from the outside, kedusha, and to kedusha the Yisrael nemshach shiva pnimius. To the Yidden is given inner life force. Acharaim, and what's acharaim? Command to show the best kasmi, like someone throws backwards. Pnimius birotzen v'cheftzei. Pnimius is what you really want. Our example was this: Melech she'oisem mishtel sarvavad of the king who makes a big party for all his friends and all his officers, hagedolim and all the great ministers. Shem ikar v'cheftzei. Those are what he really wants. V'nenim gam ha'avodim haktanim. Also, the low level avodim also have a good time. Derech agav, and on the side, me'ashrayim nenim gam v'klabim. And also, the dogs end up getting as well. Remind me tomorrow to say the story about the guy who whacked his horse, and also,